The book of Yashar, Jasher, chapter 43. And when the sons of Yaakov had sold their brother Yosef to the Midianim, their hearts were smitten on account of him, and they repented of their acts. And they sought for him to bring him back, but could not find him. And Reuben returned to the pit in which Yosef had been put, in order to lift him out and restore him to his father. And Reuben stood by the pit, and he heard not a word. And he called out, Yosef, Yosef! And no one answered or uttered a word. And Reuben said, Yosef has died through fright, or some serpent has caused his death. And Reuben descended into the pit, and he searched for Yosef, and could not find him in the pit, and he came out again. And Reuben tore his garments, and he said, The child is not there, and how shall I reconcile my father about him if he be dead? And he went to his brethren, and found them grieving on account of Yosef, and counseling together how to reconcile their father about him. And Reuben said unto his brethren, I came to the pit, and behold, Yosef was not there. What then shall we say unto our father? For my father will only seek the lad from me. And his brethren answered him, saying, Thus and thus we did, and our hearts afterwards smote us on account of this act. And we now sit to seek a pretext how we shall reconcile our father to it. And Reuben said unto them, What is this you have done to bring down the gray hairs of our father in sorrow to Sheol? The thing is not good that you have done. And Reuben sat with them, and they all rose up and swore to each other not to tell this thing unto Yaakov. And they all said, The man who will tell this to our father or his household, or who will report this to any of the children of the land, we will rise up against him and slay him with the sword. And the sons of Yaakov feared each other in this matter, from the youngest to the oldest, and no one spoke a word. And they concealed the thing in their hearts. And they afterwards sat down to determine and invent something to say to their father concerning all these things. And Yashar said unto them, Here is some advice for you, if it seems good in your eyes to do this thing. Take the coat which belongs to Yosef and tear it, and kill a kid of the goats, and dip it in its blood, and send it to our father. And when he sees it, he will say, An evil beast has devoured him. Therefore tear ye his coat, and behold, his blood will be upon his coat. And by your doing this, we shall be free of our father's murmurings. And Yissakar's advice pleased them, and they hearkened unto him. And they did according to the word of Yissachar, which he had counseled them. And they hastened and took Yosef's coat and tore it. And they killed a kid of the goats, and dipped the coat in the blood of the kid, and then trampled it in the dust. And they sent the coat to their father Yaakov by the hand of Naphtali. And they commanded him to say these words, We had gathered in the cattle, and had come as far as the road to Shechem, and farther, when we found this coat upon the road in the wilderness, dipped in blood and in dust. Now therefore know whether it be your son's coat or not. And Naphtali went, and he came unto his father, and he gave him the coat. He spoke unto him all the words which his brethren had commanded him. And Yaakov saw Yosef's coat, and he knew it, and he fell upon his face to the ground, and became as still as a stone. And he afterward rose up and cried out with a loud and weeping voice, and he said, "It is the coat of my son Yosef." And Yaakov hastened and sent one of his servants to his sons, who went to them and found them coming along the road with the flock. And the sons of Yaakov came to their father about evening, and behold, their garments were torn, and dust was upon their heads. And they found their father crying out and weeping with a loud voice. And Yaakov said unto his sons, "Tell me truly, what evil have you this day suddenly brought upon me?" And they answered their father Yaakov, saying, "We were coming along this day after the flock had been gathered in, and we came as far as the city of Shechem by the road in the wilderness. And we found this coat filled with blood upon the ground, and we knew it, and we sent unto you if you could know it." And Yaakov heard the words of his sons, and he cried out with a loud voice, and he said, "It is the coat of my son. An evil beast has devoured him. Yosef is rent in pieces, for I sent him this day to see whether it was well with you and well with the flocks, and to bring me word again from you. And he went as I commanded him. And this happened to him this day, while I thought my son was with you." And the sons of Yaakov answered and said, "He did not come to us, neither have we seen him from the time of our going out from you until now." And when Yaakov heard their words, he again cried out aloud, and he rose up and tore his garments, and he put sackcloth upon his loins, and he wept bitterly. And he mourned and lifted up his voice in weeping, and exclaimed, and said these words, "Yosef, my son, O my son Yosef, I sent you this day after the welfare of your brethren, and behold, you have been torn in pieces. Through my hand has this happened to my son. It grieves me for you, Yosef, my son. It grieves me for you. How sweet you were to me during life, and now how exceedingly bitter is your death to me. Oh, that I died in your stead, Yosef, my son, for it grieves me sadly for you, my son. Oh, my son, Yosef, my son, where are you? And where have you been drawn? Arouse, arouse from your place, and come and see my grief for you, O my son Yosef. Come now, and number the tears gushing from my eyes down my cheeks, and bring them up before Yahuwah, that his anger may turn from me. O Yosef, my son, how did you fall by the hand of one by whom no one had fallen from the beginning of the world unto this day? For you have been put to death by the smiting of an enemy, inflicted with cruelty. But surely I know that this has happened to you on account of the multitude of my sins. Arouse now, and see how bitter is my trouble for you, my son. Although I did not rear you, nor fashion you, nor give you breath and soul, but it was Elohim who formed you, and built your bones, and covered them with flesh, and breathed into your nostrils the breath of life. And then he gave you unto me. Now truly Elohim, who gave you unto me, he has taken you from me. And such then has befallen you this day, and all the works of Elohim are good. And Yaakov continued to speak like unto these words concerning Yosef, and he wept bitterly. He fell to the ground and became still. And all the sons of Yaakov, seeing their father's trouble, they repented of what they had done, and they also wept bitterly. And Yehuda rose up and lifted his father's head from the ground, and placed it upon his lap, and he wiped his father's tears from his cheeks. And Yehuda wept an exceeding great weeping, while his father's head was reclining upon his lap, still as a stone. And the sons of Yaakov saw their father's trouble, and they lifted up their voices and continued to weep. And Yaakov was yet lying upon the ground, still as a stone. And all his sons and his servants children rose up and stood round him to comfort him, and he refused to be comforted. And the whole household of Yaakov's rose up and mourned a great mourning on account of Yosef and their father's trouble. And the intelligence reached Yitzchak, the son of Abraham, the father of Yaakov, and he wept bitterly on account of Yosef, he and all his household. And he went from the place where he dwelt in Chevron, and his men with him. And he comforted Yaakov his son, and he refused to be comforted. And after this, Yaakov rose up from the ground, and his tears were running down his cheeks. And he said unto his sons, Rise up and take your swords and your bows, and go forth into the field, and seek whether you can find my son's body, and bring it unto me, that I may bury it. Seek also, I pray you, among the beasts, and hunt them, and that which shall come the first before you seize, and bring it unto me. Perhaps Yahuwah will this day pity my affliction, and prepare before you that which did tear my son in pieces, and bring it unto me, and I will avenge the cause of my son. And his sons did it as their father commanded. And they rose up early in the morning, and each took his sword and his bow in his hand. And they went forth into the field to hunt the beasts. And Yaakov was still crying aloud and weeping, and walking to and fro in the house, and smiting his hands together, saying, Yosef, my son, Yosef, my son. And the sons of Yaakov went into the wilderness to seize the beasts, and behold, a wolf came toward them. And they seized him, and brought him unto their father. And they said unto him, This is the first we have found, and we have brought him unto you, as you did command us, and your son's body we could not find. And Yaakov took the beast from the hands of his sons, and he cried out with a loud and weeping voice, holding the beast in its hand. And he spoke with a bitter heart unto the beast, Why did you devour my son Yosef? And how did you have no fear of the Elohim of the earth, or of my trouble for my son Yosef? And you did devour my son for naught, because he committed no violence, and did thereby render me culpable on his account. Therefore Elohim will require him that is persecuted. And Yahuwah opened the mouth of the beast in order to comfort Yaakov with its words. And it answered Yaakov, and spoke these words unto him, As Elohim lives, who created us in the earth, and as your soul lives, my Adonai, I did not see your son, neither did I tear him to pieces, but from a distant land I also came to seek my son, who went from me this day, and I know not whether he be living or dead. And I came this day into the field to seek my son, and your sons found me, and seized me, and increased my grief, and have this day brought me before you, and I have now spoken all my words to you. And now, therefore, O son of Adam, I am in your hands, and do unto me this day as it may seem good in your sight. But by the life of Elohim, who created me, I did not see your son, nor did I tear him to pieces, neither has the flesh of man entered my mouth all the days of my life. And when Yaakov heard the words of the beast, he was greatly astonished, and sent forth the beast from his hand, and she went her way. And Yaakov was still crying aloud and weeping for Yosef day after day, and he mourned for his son many days. Chapter 44. And the sons of Ishmael, who had bought Yosef from the Midianim, who had bought him from his brethren, went to Mitzrayim with Yosef, and they came up upon the borders of Mitzrayim. And when they came near unto Mitzrayim, they met 4 men of the sons of Midian, the son of Abraham, who had gone forth from the land of Mitzrayim on their journey. And the Ishmaelim said unto them, Do as you desire to purchase this slave from us. And they said, Deliver him over to us. And they delivered Yosef over to them, and they beheld him, that he was a very comely youth, and they purchased him for 20 shekels. And the Ishmaelim continued their journey to Mitzrayim, and the Midianim also returned that day to Mitzrayim. And the Midianim said to each other, Behold, we have heard that Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, seeks a good servant who shall stand before him to attend him, and to make him overseer of his house, and all belonging to him. Now therefore, come, let us sell him to him for what we may desire, if he be able to give unto us that day, unto us that which we shall require for him. And these Midianim went and came to the house of Potiphar, and said unto him, We have heard that you seek a good servant to attend you. Behold, we have a servant that will please you, if you can give unto us that which we may desire, and we will sell him unto you. And Potiphar said, Bring him before me, and I will see him. And if he please me, I will give unto you that which you may require for him. And the Midianim went and brought Yosef, and placed him before Potiphar. And he saw him, and he pleased him exceedingly. And Potiphar said unto them, Tell me what you require for this youth. And they said, 400 pieces of silver we desire for him. And Potiphar said, I will give it to you if you bring me the record of his sale to you, and will tell me his history, for perhaps he may be stolen, for this youth is neither a slave nor the son of a slave, but I observe in him the appearance of a goodly and handsome person. And the Midianim went and brought unto him the Ishmaelim, who had sold him to them. And they told him, saying, He is a slave, and we sold him to them. And Potiphar heard the words of the Ishmaelim, in his giving the silver unto the Midianim. And the Midianim took the silver, and went on their journey. And the Ishmaelim also returned home. And Potiphar took Yosef, and brought him to his house, that he might serve him. And Yosef found favor in the sight of Potiphar, and he placed confidence in him, and made him overseer of his house, and all that belonged to him he delivered over into his hand. And Yahuwah was with Yosef, and he became a prosperous man. And Yahuwah blessed the house of Potiphar for the sake of Yosef. And Potiphar left all that he had in the hand of Yosef. And Yosef was one that caused things to come in and go out, and everything was regulated by his wish in the house of Potiphar. And Yosef was 18 years old a youth with beautiful eyes, and of comely appearance, and like unto him was not in the whole land of Mitzrayim. At that time, while he was in his Adonai's house, going in and out of the house, and attending his Adonai, Zilkah, his Adonai's woman, lifted up her eyes toward Yosef, and she looked at him, and behold, he was a youth comely and well favored. And she lusted after his beauty in her heart, and her soul was fixed upon Yosef, and she enticed him day after day. And Zilkah persuaded Yosef daily, but Yosef did not lift up his eyes to behold his Adonai's woman. And Zilkah said unto him, How goodly are your appearance and form! Truly, I have looked at all the slaves, and have not seen so beautiful a slave as you are. And Yosef said unto her, Surely he, who created me in my mother's womb, created all mankind. And she said unto him, How beautiful are your eyes, with which you have dazzled all the inhabitants of Mitzrayim, men and women. And he said unto her, How beautiful they are while we are alive, but should you behold them in Sheol, surely you would move away from them. And she said unto him, How beautiful and pleasing are all your words! Take now, I pray, the harp which is in the house, and play with your hands, and let us hear your words. And he said unto her, How beautiful and pleasing are my words when I speak the praise of my Elohim and his glory. And she said unto him, How very beautiful is the hair of your head! Behold the golden comb which is in the house. Take it, I pray you, and curl the hair of your head. And he said unto her, How long will you speak these words? Cease to utter these words to me, and rise and attend to your domestic affairs. And she said unto him, There is no one in my house, and there is nothing to attend to but your words, and to your wish. Not yet withstanding all this, she could not bring Yosef unto her, neither did he place his eye upon her, but directed his eyes below to the ground. And Zilkah desired Yosef in her heart, that he should lie with her. And at the time that Yosef was sitting in the house doing his work, Zilkah came and sat before him, and she enticed him daily with her discourse, to lie with her, or even to look at her. But Yosef would not hearken to her. And she said unto him, If you will not do according to my words, I will chastise you with the punishment of death, and put an iron yoke upon you. And Yosef said unto her, Surely Elohim, who created man, loosens the fetters of prisoners, and it is he who will deliver me from your presence and from your judgment. And when she could not prevail over him to persuade him, and her soul being still fixed upon him, her desire threw her into a grievous sickness. And all of the women of Mitzrayim came to visit her, and they said unto her, Why are you in this declining state, you that lack nothing? Surely your man is a great and esteemed prince in the sight of the king. Should you lack anything of what your heart desires? And Zilkah answered them, saying, This day it shall be made known to you whence this disorder springs in which you see me. And she commanded her maidservants to prepare food for all the women, and she made a banquet for them, and all the women ate in the house of Zilkah. And she gave them knives to peel the citrons, to eat them. And she commanded that they should dress Yosef in costly garments, and that he should appear before them. And Yosef came before their eyes, and all the women looked on Yosef, and could not take their eyes from off him. And they all cut their hands with the knives that they had in their hands, and all the citrons that were in their hands were filled with blood. And they knew not what they had done, but they continued to look at the beauty of Yosef, and did not turn their eyelids from him. And Zelka saw what they had done, and she said unto him, What is this work that you have done? Behold, I gave you citrons to eat, and you have all cut your hands. And all the women saw their hands, and behold, they were full of blood, and their blood flowed down upon their garments. And they said unto her, This slave in your house has overcome us, and we could not turn our eyelids from him on account of his beauty. And she said unto them, Surely this has happened to you in the moment that you looked at him, and you could not contain yourselves from him. How then can I refrain when he is constantly in my house, and I see him day after day going in and out of my house? How then can I keep from declining or even from perishing on account of this? And they said unto her, The words are true, for who can see this beautiful form in the house and refrain from him? And is he not your slave and attendant in your house? And why do you not tell him that which is in your heart, and suffer your soul to perish through this matter? And she said unto them, I am daily endeavoring to persuade him, and he will not consent to my wishes. And I promised him everything that is good, and yet I could meet with no return from him. I am therefore in a declining state, as you see. And Zelka became very ill on account of her desire toward Yosef, and she was desperately lovesick on account of him. And all the people of the house of Zelka and her man knew nothing of this matter, that Zelka was ill on account of her love to Yosef. And all the people of her house asked her, saying, Why are you ill and declining, and lack nothing? And she said unto them, I know not this thing which is daily increasing upon me. And all the women and her friends came daily to see her, and they spoke with her. And she said unto them, This can only be through the love of Yosef. And they said unto her, Entice him, and seize him secretly. Perhaps he may hearken to you, and put off this death from you. And Zelka became worse from her love to Yosef, and she continued to decline, till she had scarce strength to stand. And on a certain day, Yosef was doing his Adonai's work in the house, and Zelka came secretly, and fell suddenly upon him, and Yosef rose up against her, and he was more powerful than she. And he brought her down to the ground, and Zelka wept on account of the desire of her heart toward him. And she supplicated him with weeping, and her tears flowed down her cheeks. And she spoke unto him in a voice of supplication and in bitterness of soul, saying, Have you ever heard, seen, or known of so beautiful a woman as I am, or better than myself, who speak daily unto you, fall into a decline through love for you, confer all this honor upon you, and still you will not hearken to my voice? And if it be through fear of your Adonai, lest he punish you, as the king lives, no harm shall come to you from your Adonai through this thing. Now therefore pray, listen to me, and consent for the sake of the honor which I have conferred upon you, and put off this death from me? And why should I die for your sake?" And she ceased to speak. And Yosef answered her, saying, "Refrain from me, and leave this matter to my Adonai. Behold, my Adonai knows not what there is with me in the house. For all that belongs to him he has delivered into my hand. And how shall I do these things in my Adonai's house? For he has also greatly honored me in his house, and he has also made me overseer over his house. And he has exalted me, and there is no one greater in this house than I am. And my Adonai has refrained nothing from me, excepting you who are his woman. How then can you speak these words unto me? And how can I do this great evil and sin to Elohim and to your man? Now therefore refrain from me, and speak no more such words as these. For I will not hearken to your words." But Zelka would not hearken to Yosef when he spoke these words unto her, but she daily enticed him to listen to her. And it was after this that the brook of Mitzrayim was filled above all its sides, and all the inhabitants of Mitzrayim went forth, and also the king and princes went forth with timbrels and dances, for it was a great rejoicing in Mitzrayim, and a holiday at the time of the inundation of the sea Shilakor. And they went there to rejoice all the day. And when the Mitzrayim went out to the river to rejoice, as was their custom, all the people of the house of Potiphar went with them. But Zelka would not go with them, for she said, "I am indisposed." And she remained alone in the house, and no other person was with her in the house. And she rose up and ascended to her temple in the house, and dressed herself in princely garments, and she placed upon her head precious stones of onyx stones, inlaid with silver and gold, and she beautified her face with skin, with all sorts of women's purifying liquids, and she perfumed the temple and the house with cassia and frankincense, and she spread myrrh and aloes. And she afterward sat in the entrance of the temple, in the passage of the house, through which Yosef passed to do his work. And behold, Yosef came from the field and entered the house to do his Adonai's work. And he came to the place through which he had to pass, and he saw all the work of Zelka, and he turned back. And Zelka saw Yosef turning back from her, and she called out to him, saying, "What ails you, Yosef? Come to your work, and behold, I will make room for you until you shall have passed to your seat." And Yosef returned and came to the house, and passed from thence to the place of his seat, and he sat down to do his Adonai's work as usual. And behold, Zelka came to him, and stood before him in princely garments, and the scent from her clothes was spread to a distance. And she hastened and caught hold of Yosef and his garments, and said unto him, "As the king lives, if you will not perform my request, you shall die this day." And she hastened and stretched forth her other hand, and drew a sword from beneath her garments, and she placed it upon Yosef's neck. And she said, "Rise and perform my request, and if not, you die this day." And Yosef was afraid of her at doing this thing, and he rose up to flee from her, and she seized the front of his garments, and in the terror of his flight, the garment which Zelka seized was torn. And Yosef left the garment in the hand of Zelka, and he fled and got out, for he was in fear. And when Zelka saw that Yosef's garment was torn, and that he had left it in her hand and had fled, she was afraid of her life, lest the report should spread concerning her. And she rose up and acted with cunning, and put off the garments in which she was dressed, and she put on her other garments. And she took Yosef's garment, and she laid it beside her. And she went and seated herself in the place where she had sat in her illness, before the people of her house had gone out to the river. And she called a young lad who was then in the house, and she ordered him to call the people of the house to her. And when she saw them, she said unto them with a loud voice and lamentation, See what an Ivri your Adonai has brought to me in the house, for he came this day to lie with me. For when you had gone out, he came to the house, and seeing that there was no person in the house, he came unto me and caught hold of me with intent to lie with me. And I seized his garment and tore them, and called out against him with a loud voice. And when I had lifted up my voice, he was afraid of his life, and left his garment before me and fled. And the people of her house spoke nothing, but their wrath was very much kindled against Yosef. And they went to his Adonai, and told him the words of his woman. And Potiphar came home enraged, and his woman cried out to him, saying, What is this thing you've done unto me in bringing an Ivri servant into my house? For he came unto me this day to sport with me. Thus did he do unto me this day. And Potiphar heard the words of his woman, and he ordered Yosef to be punished with severe stripes. And they did so to him. And while they were smiting him, Yosef called out with a loud voice, and he lifted up his eyes to Shamayim, heaven, and said, O Yahuwah, Elohim, you know that I am innocent of all these things. And why shall I die this day through falsehood by the hand of these uncircumcised wicked men, whom you know? And while Potiphar's men were beating Yosef, he continued to cry out and weep. And there was a child there, 11 months old, and Yahuwah opened the mouth of the child, and he spake these words before Potiphar's men, who were smiting Yosef, saying, What do you want of this man, and why do you do this evil unto him? My mother speaks falsely and utters lies. Thus was the transaction. And the child told them accurately all that had happened, and all the words of Zelka to Yosef day after day he declared unto them. And all the men heard the words of the child, and they wondered greatly at the child's words, and the child ceased to speak and became still. And Potiphar was very much ashamed at the words of his son, and he commanded his men not to beat Yosef any more. And the men ceased beating Yosef. And Potiphar took Yosef and ordered him to be brought to justice before the priests who were judges belonging to the king, in order to judge him concerning this affair. And Potiphar and Yosef came before the priests, who were the king's judges, and he said unto them, Decide, I pray you, what judgment is due to a servant, for thus has he done. And the priests said unto Yosef, Why did you do this thing to your Adonai? And Yosef answered them, saying, Not so, my Adonai. Thus was the matter. And Potiphar said unto Yosef, Surely I entrusted in your hands all that belonged to me, and I withheld nothing from you but my woman. And how could you do this evil? And Yosef answered, saying, Not so, my Adonai. As Yahuwah lives, and as your soul lives, my Adonai, the word which you did hear from your woman is untrue. For thus was the affair this day. A year has elapsed to me since I have been in your house. Have you seen any iniquity in me, or anything which might cause you to demand my life? And the priest said unto Potiphar, Send, we pray you, and let them bring before us Joseph's torn garment, and let us see the tear in it. And if it shall be that the tear is in front of the garment, then his face must have been opposite to her, and she must have caught hold of him to come to her. And with deceit did your woman do all that she has spoken. And they brought Joseph's garment before the priests, who were judges, and they saw, and behold, the tear was in front of Joseph. And all the judging priests knew that she had pressed him. And they said, The judgment of death is not due to this slave, for he has done nothing. But his judgment is that he be placed in the prison house on account of the report which through him has gone forth against your woman. And Potiphar heard their words, and he placed him in the prison house, the place where the king's prisoners are confined. And Joseph was in the house of confinement 12 years. And notwithstanding this, his Adonai's woman did not turn from him, and she did not cease from speaking to him day after day to hearken to her. And at the end of 3 months, Zelka continued going to Joseph to the house of confinement day by day, and she enticed him to hearken to her. And Zelka said unto Joseph, How long will you remain in this house? But hearken now to my voice, and I will bring you out of this house. And Joseph answered her, saying, It is better for me to remain in this house than to hearken to your words, to sin against Elohim. And she said unto him, If you will not perform my wish, I will pluck your eyes out, add fetters to your feet, and will deliver you into the hands of them whom you did not know before. And Joseph answered her and said, Behold, the Elohim of the whole earth is able to deliver me from all that you can do unto me, for he opens the eyes of the blind and loosens those that are bound and preserves all strangers who are unacquainted with the land. And when Zelka was unable to persuade Joseph to hearken to her, she left off going to entice him. And Joseph was still confined in the house of confinement. And Yaakov, the father of Joseph, and all his brethren who were in the land of Canaan, still mourned and wept in those days on account of Joseph. For Yaakov refused to be comforted for his son Joseph. And Yaakov cried aloud and wept and mourned all those days.